Welcome to Game Crashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible for everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. If I were to list out the credits of today's guest, I would need to unravel a scroll that would roll across my office. He's a co-creator of Miles Morales, Ironheart, Jessica Jones, Powers, which is one of my favorites, and so many other iconic books and characters. His current work includes this Jinx World, being published through Dark Horse, which includes things like Murder Inc., Jagger Rose, Fortune and Glory, Joy Operations, and the book will be focusing on a lot here today, The Ones, whose first volume recently hit shelves. We are joined by Brian Michael Bendis. How are you?
Very good to talk to you. Thanks for the nice intro.
I'm very excited to talk to you. I don't know how much you know about me, but they do know me as a hard-hitting journalist in the world of comic books. I hope you're ready for my first question. What is your favorite sandwich?
Oh, dear God. So many questions. Well, I'm Jewish, so we're Reubens are like, it's part of our DNA. It's like it may not be my favorite, but you said sandwich. My brain said Reuben. You want a Reuben with Russian dressing from Corky's and Lenny's in Cleveland, Ohio in 1975. So but we do love our sandwiches here at the Bendis house. So
it is so funny. I've been doing this for 4 years. Pretty much most comic creators' favorite sandwich is Reuben, something with pastrami or corned beef. It's always
cheap and it's filling and get back to work.
I think that's probably it. So you've worked with a million different people. You always work with a murderer's row of talented artists. When you get an idea for a book, do you develop it through conversations with them, or do you come to them with a seed and then you grow it?
Completely depends. Every single project I've had has gestated differently. Sometimes, like, there's a couple of creators right now where there's no idea. We're just talking. We're just getting a sense of what's pulling us towards each other as creators. Like, sometimes it's that. Like, we should do something together. What? I don't know. Let's not box it in. Let's not go to the first thing we both think of. Like, that's sometimes the easiest idea versus the scariest idea that has to be revealed, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that. Sometimes I have an idea, man. It's been cooking, and it cooks sometimes for days, sometimes for years before I could even muster the courage to say it out loud to friends or colleagues. Sometimes that I have an idea that, I hope Mike Oeming wants to do it because I only want Mike Oeming to do it. I can't see it other than Mike Oeming. And other times I'm like, I don't know who this is for, but I'll know when I know. Right. And The Ones was actually one of those. Like it just stated for years before I even had the guts to say it out loud, like how much this idea meant to me and how much I wanted to do it. Because there was that missing piece of who's my partner on this, mm-hmm. Like who is it? And there's times where artists will come with a kernel of an idea or a visual, like here's something I keep drawing, but I don't know why, right? Or here's and like Mike Oeming came to me with the Murder Inc. Alternative history. All he had was alternative history. 5 families never gave up the play. Mm. Oh, that's a great idea, and I just went nuts with it, right? But vice versa. Powers was like, I came to him with, here's an idea for Powers, and he just started drawing. He didn't even know who the characters were. So anything that gets the juice flowing and it gets that good feeling. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people watched a couple years ago that Beatles documentary when the songs start coming together. That's what it feels like. Like, there was nothing, and now there's something, and that's and it seemed impossible up until the moment it revealed itself. So I'm a real craft nerd. I'm a junkie. I love the craft. I love other people's craft. I love reading about their craft, no matter what the medium. And I have really celebrated and loved the creative people in any field who leave themselves wide open. Like there's some people that have a way they do stuff and it's worked for them and that's what they do. And for some of those creators, that's been successful. But my flavor of creator, the people whose work I really end up find out, it's always someone who's wide open to the experience of collaboration and creation. It can come from anywhere, and inspiration come from anywhere. And as a creator, I want to be scared. I want to not know if I can do it. I want to know if I'm going to be able to get all the way to the end. That's the best part and the scariest part. So sometimes being open to the unknown is the only way to get to that magical place. I know there's a long answer, but it is what we think about constantly in this business, about how to generate inspiration at the highest level. Because comics in particular, this audience who buys, let's say independent comics, let's be very specific. People who buy a brand new idea from Image or Dark Horse, or we live in a culture now. There's so much story. There's so much available free story that if someone's going out of the way for a new experience, like I'm looking for something else. And that's why I'm in independent comics. I'm looking specifically for you to show me something I can't see anywhere else. And then we think about that a great deal, and knowing that the only way to really get there is to really inspire the shit out of each other. That always gets,
I love that,
best results from the audience. So
I love the idea that you're so open to challenging yourself even now after you've done a laundry list of incredible things you've done. So I'm really excited to hear that's how you think about this.
I appreciate that. And again, I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of people who taught me that. And I see so many creators from different walks of life, musicians and filmmakers, podcasters, and you all of a sudden discover, there's the thread that connects all of this is this person's willing to go for it and fail. And that's very exciting. So, and they know it too. And then when you get to be older, when you get a little older, you get to see failure as an exciting opportunity versus that thing that you were terrified of in your 20s. Like, oh my God, I'm going to fail and everyone's going to know. And now I'm like, every time something's failed, it's always followed up by one of the most amazing things that's ever happened creatively, commercially. It's always the thing that delivers. So sometimes now I get really excited when something's fucking up because I know the next thing is going to be really cool. Just keep going.
I love the keep going mindset. Now, the one thing I did notice I've been reading a lot of your books to prepare for this, on your credits page, the created by is always you and the artist. What was is that something you decide on? Like you and the artist put that together?
Well, early on, I think I first did it with Oming on Powers, if I'm not mistaken. And I had made that very strange transition from being a one-man Army Corps, an OMAC of comics, which is like you're drawing and lettering and book designing. When you're doing, I did those first 10 years all by myself. Basically because I didn't have any money to pay anybody to do it, and I didn't know how to ask anybody. So I just figured out how to do it myself. And then transitioning to sharing those responsibilities with someone was a fitful experience for me. But one of the things I took, and there's this great bit you'll see in some documentaries about Citizen Kane, where Orson Welles shared his credit card with the cinematographer, Greg Tolan, because he realized there's nothing on this movie that's just me. It's me and him. So let's just tell the audience this was both of us. And I can't, even in my Orson Welles ego, take credit. Right. And I always admired that. And there was a couple other examples of that where not only are they sharing the credit, but that's the best part. That's my favorite part. I get there's a credit and it's me and this person, and it describes how I feel about them. So I went to Mike and I go, I can't tell where the created by, if you say created by us, but written by me and drawn by you, that's not correct. and it can sometimes diminish the label of what's actually going on behind the scenes to the audience. So what's really going on is we're creating this, and you're writing and I'm writing and you're drawing and I'm designing, and like everyone's doing everything. So let's not make a mess of it. Let's just make everyone free and equal. It's an equal partnership. Let's define it in writing as created by, and it's very obvious that Mike has drawn every single line of stuff. But it makes, I don't know, it just makes me proud of the collaboration, and I'm actually kind of flattered that you noticed it, because it's something that I take a lot of. It's something I treasure, is those credits that we share together, and every time I'm in a new creative partnership, like I am with Jacob on the ones, or Andre with Phenomena, a relatively new one, I'll bring it up. I go, hey, we can do this any way you want, but this has always seemed to be the fairest way. And I think everyone's agreed. I can't remember anyone saying, no, I wanted to say only arts. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're describing, and sometimes, I don't know if it's anybody's fault, but over the last 15 years, there's been a lot of articles about comics that are very writer focused. And I think sometimes it's because writers are writing the articles and they're just hitting it from their perspective. I don't think they're coming at it to be damaging to the collaborators or anything. I just think they only know what they know. And sometimes journalists are alone in the room as writers, so that's what they know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know this magnificence of collaboration. So a lot of times I'll see articles written about me or my friends that are so heavy on our participation versus the overall collaboration, that I think doing stuff like this, like defining the collaboration publicly a little clearer, makes it a little easier for people like yourself to ask me, and then I get to celebrate the collaboration a little more.
That's why it was so exciting for me, because I always look at those pages, because I'm someone who, anytime I write about something, you have to mention the colors, you have to mention the letter. If anywhere I've ever worked, when I was an editor at CBR, I would lose my shit if people didn't, because everyone is a part of this process. So it's very important to me, especially that someone like you is very mindful of that. So that's awesome to hear. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, again, a small burden, but how many times I've had to say co-creator.
Yeah.
And it's just because people don't know how the song is just made, nor should they. Should be enjoy their comics, but it's, but this co-creation, this collaboration, these are the things I'm most proud of. So it gives me an opportunity just to tell you.
Yeah. And then the writers who are writing, the people who are journalists, don't typically have the tools to talk about art and things like that. You have to put in the extra time to do that. And
there also is, in any medium, particularly creative mediums, quite a bit of ego where people take more credit than they deserve, or want their name on top of it, or try to push down other people on behalf of themselves, not knowing that by doing that, you're actually probably hurting yourself. And it's always weird to me when someone uses the medium of comics, which is it's so immersed in collaboration, like collaboration is what brings you here. So why are you trying to defy it? It's always why aren't you celebrating it on every level? That's what this is about. So, and I actually am glad you brought it up, because I know we're here to talk about the ones, and I'm not trying to
no, it's okay.
But one of my favorite meet cutes in comics is me and Jacob on the ones. It's a perfect example of the magic of comics on a couple of levels, because we did not know each other. I had no idea who Jacob was, and a fan on Twitter just a few years ago, again, a much better Twitter than exists in the moment, but said, just a fan of mine and a fan of Jacob's, fan cast us together, said, I think you guys would make great comics together. Have you ever seen Jacob's work, Brian? And I'm like, oh, I do. I love Jacob's work. And I looked at it, and it caught me just in that great moment during the pandemic where I'm like, oh, shit, I do. I think I love this stuff. And then I thought, is the person who just tweeted me this, is it this person with a fake account trying to get my attention. And then I thought, if so, I like them even more. So I'm gonna pursue this a little bit and see what's what. And I did. I got Jacob on Zoom and we talked a little bit, and I had a that immediate sense that, we might be. You can get a sense right away. Mm-hmm. It's not unlike meeting anybody in any kind of social situation. You gotta get a sense of people's energy quickly and know if there's a second date. and so I was in a great space with Jacob, and we were talking, and I had a couple of ideas that were cooking. The one that was really bubbling under was the ones, and I was really hoping he would go for it. And at the same time, I had a couple of offers to do some short stories for some anthologies, and I went, "Oh, what a great opportunity! Me and Jacob will do like an 8-pager and see if we work together. See if my instincts are right on this, because that's something I teach my students all the time. Like, don't start with a giant graphic novel. Start small and see how it goes." And so we did our short story and Metal Her Lot for a anniversary they did a couple years ago, and that's actually in the trade paperback for people who buy the trade paperback, and that went very well. And I believe the next week we were already making the ones.
Wild. And
but that's how it can go. It's so funny, you can meet people through friends, you can meet people through business, you can just be sitting next to them at an artist alley, and all of a sudden by the end of the convention, you have a new friend. It's one of the best parts of comics, and I that's how I met most of my best friends, most of my the uncles to my children. That's how I met David Mack. I'm literally today writing the epilogue to his art book for his Marvel art book, and I'm kind of going down memory lane of 30 years ago, meeting him at a Chicago Comic-Con, and just by the end of the weekend we were best friends. That's just how it goes. Yeah.
And I love your work, but the ones just everything clicked for me. It is wonderful. It is a wonderful book, and I'm excited to see where everything goes. But all the ones, these characters who were quote unquote the ones at one point or another, are so interesting. I do want to talk about them in a moment, but I think Wilson may be the most interesting character in the book.
I love Wilson. Thank you.
I wanted to understand a little bit more how you wanted to throw this leader in who wasn't really the one, but he was kind of their watcher, quote unquote.
Oh, but he might be the one. That's the thing too. As we get into it, his job is the one of the ones, right? So, so for those who don't know the concept, it's a comedy, and it's about all the ones that were told they were the one have to get together and team up to defeat the actual one. And it plays very heavy on the chosen one trope that goes through every mythology, every storytelling engine in every pop culture. There are stories of the ones. I have grown up with it my whole life. I was a young child when Eddie Murphy starred in The Golden Child, and from then on up, I've been kind of obsessed with the tropes and there's this, every time I hear it, it's always funny to me. I don't know why. Even in the original Matrix, which is a masterpiece, and is you're the one, except the one telling you looks like she's the one. I'm not sure. And then even in the fourth Matrix, and I think that might have just killed me when they were like, well, maybe you're both the one. I'm like, all right, I'm done. We're doing, that's it. I have to do this. And it just, what it allowed, it's, first of all, it's a funny trope, and it opens the doors to all kinds of genres and subgenres of things I wanted to goof around on and have some fun with. But also this idea, we live in this, we're decades into the social media realm of everyone thinks they're special, except no one thinks they're special, and if everyone's special, then nobody's special, and so that idea, I think, kind of defines a lot of us, especially those of us with an online persona, and I thought that would be something fun to dive into, and also we've just heard enough, even the ones would know they're not the ones at one point, or you were the one and now you're done. that kind of has been kind of feel like, no, yeah, okay, now you still have to live the rest of your life, but you're no longer required. Is an interesting idea. So all of these opportunities were just, I couldn't wait to put them all together. I couldn't wait for them to meet each other. I just couldn't wait.
I love that. I do want to ask, when you and Jacob were developing Wilson, whose choice was it to give him a sick mustache?
I believe that was Jacob. There might have been like maybe a mustache. Like I have facial, this is some things I see in my own work. Like I tend to think facial hair means evil. Like, and I don't know where that came from. I think it was something happened in the 80s to me, but in pop culture. But so I wanted to defy some of the choices I've made in the past. Particularly and yeah, so yeah, and the t-shirts are all Jacob. I got to give Jacob full t-shirt credit. Those t-shirts are funny every time.
They're great.
They're all him. Yeah.
With Wilson, this character doesn't appear much, but he's kind of like his sidekick. I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Loic. So Lorik, where did he come from as a character? Like, what inspired you both to put him in this story?
Oh, well, first of all, I'm glad you like Wilson, because Wilson is also kind of like, even though he's in charge, he's also the voice of the audience, which is a strange, like, I love that idea. Like, imagine if Professor X was also the voice of the audience, like that. Yeah. That seemed like a unique challenge narratively, and I wanted to try it. Like, I'm in charge, and I also have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Is a fun place to be, and because I'm working on the sequel right now, so I have some advanced knowledge that with every case comes. It's a whole different genre. So like, just because we were successful with this thing that we just did doesn't mean that Wilson knows any more than he did.
I love that.
so his state of not knowing stays there for a while. So he has, for those who don't know, Wilson is the guy who's been given he's now in charge of these prophecies. He's a prophecy holder. His family, it's handed down from generation to generation, and we get the sense that this family has gone through harder times over the last 100 years, and now we have a U-Haul storage unit full of prophecies that are coming true, may one day come true. And some of them must come true. Some of them we really don't want to come true. And he's in charge of all of that. And with that comes this little mythological creature, very much like a lot of things from a lot of places, who's kind of in charge of guarding it. And also an infuriating sense of self, and only gives it up when he thinks it's, when it suits him.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very frustrating for Wilson. But it's just an opportunity to like every choice we make in that first volume is a very specific choice, in that we want it to be a window into something else that we may or may not get to. Every single character has volumes of mythology that I've written up already, like adventures they've been on, and choices that they've made, and places that they're going. And that got real exciting for me. Like, every one of these characters could lead a book. And I even had it like, I wrote down, how many comics did Thrace's comic go before it got canceled? How many comics did Ava have? Like if you go, like we're never going to see them. But if they exist only in comic book universes, how many issues of solo material are out there, and what happened? And I wrote them all down. Very inspired by other people who've done such things. I feel if I'm enjoying all of this backstory, I can share that enjoyment.
That's the part of the craft that I loved, like the development of these characters. So like, you're going way beyond and building them out far beyond what we're seeing on the page here, is what you're saying?
Yes, that way, and then I know where I can go with any of these characters at any time. And this is very much based on I teach writing at Portland State, so I'm always looking for examples where writers did something unique and got unique results that inspired me. And there's a movie called American Gangster starring Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, which I know is exactly where you thought I was going with the story.
Yeah.
But in American Gangster, the writer Steve Zaley, one of my favorite writers, he was in. For those who have not seen it, it's a two-hander. It's two stories playing out at once. It's Denzel Washington is a gangster and Russell Crowe is the cop, not unlike The Fugitive. And these two stories are coming towards each other and they will meet up at the end and boom, right? And with this kind of story, he thought, the best thing I can do, I'm going to write a screenplay just for Denzel Washington's character and stay with that character nowhere else. And then I'll write a whole other screenplay for Russell Crowe's character and just tell that story and nothing else about that. And then when I'm done, I'll braid them together. And by braiding and taking out all the shit scenes, and all we get is the good scene, good scene, good scene, good scene, good scene, and everything else gets taken out. And I love this idea. And I've tried it a few other times in some Marvel books and stuff, but I thought for here, it's perfect. I'm going to write out every single character's like what their tone is, what their world is, like what the color is of their world. And so what they're bringing to the group. And, and that got real fun for me. And again, all of this is a blast. This is fun. And this is because having written Avengers and X-Men, because a lot of this comes with it. Like I'm given, like when I'm on Avengers, I don't have to worry about, I don't have to do the work on what's going on with Tony. Someone else handed, my friend Matt's writing Tony. I know exactly what's going on with Tony. This one, I get to do all that work, and that's a lot of fun.
That makes it click why the story is not super linear and it jumps around from time. Wow. That's all. That was one of my favorite parts, that we're not seeing this direct, we're jumping 10 years back too. And I love how this is kind of put together.
Well, I've always had a soft spot for factored storytelling. Going back to my Daredevil run, very, very influenced by Steven Soderbergh in that regard with the liming and stuff like that. But with this, but going, the difference in my heart here versus there is I think that with the audience taking in more story content than they ever have in the entire world. Robert McKee talks about it in the book Story. He wrote that 20 years ago about the audience has never taken in more story than they have. And that's nothing compared to the amount of story that people take in today. So with that comes people get to see the moves, they even subconsciously. Drama and comedy has some moves, and you can get to see them every once in a while. And I think it's up to us and people making independent new stuff to fuck with the moves I said to Jacob, I go, you know what I would love to do? Go right from the first act, and then the last pages of the first issue is literally the third act. We're already just go right to the third act and show, oh, this is all going to go to hell. And it's going to go to hell, but let's show how fast it's going to go to hell, and show the audience, we're not doing it the way everyone else does it, and can be exciting.
Now, I'm not going to give too many spoilers away for this book, but one of the prophecy that we're dealing with deals with Satan. Your humor in your books is always great, but Satan feels like a whole nother level for you. He is so funny the entire time he's on the page.
I deeply appreciate that. Number one, it's of the ideas in the book, it's the one where it's well worn. So it's an idea that if you don't have an original take on it, don't bother.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come in with what the voice of it was, and for those of you who can't tell, for most of it, he's wearing Al Pacino's tuxedo from the end of Devil's Advocate.
It looks familiar, and I was like, what is
Al
that?
Pacino, and it's so, and I sent the photo reference, and I said, we're thinking about what the devil would look like, and I go, just a toddler Al Pacino. It's so fucking funny to me, and I go, and I said, let's build on it, and I don't think it needed building. I think that was it.
Yes. And
That was
the
idea.
sport, all like his like entire thing just felt so funny and
And calling
different.
people sport.
Yeah.
Like you think of what would and again, this is like the devil's fucking with you. So it's always the little things. And I just wanted to make sure that we were, and that the comedy was original and jokes I hadn't heard before. And so, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
I appreciate that.
I loved him.
Also, I've written a lot of genres and I've written a lot of comedy, and I'm a giant comedy nerd. For people who follow me on the social, you know, it's almost where I live in my comedy nerdness. And I know that some of it is based on the fact, because I think that like the life of someone who's been on Saturday Night Live and someone who's worked at Marvel is very similar. Like there's a lot of similarities in our world and our craft. And I get very excited about watching that happen. And because I've been studying it now for decades, I'm like, well, if you're going to sit down and write a comedy, you're going to show like you better be good. So you know.
With the ones, there is a Spider-Man joke in it that made me cackle. Now, I told you before this, like, your Spider-Man Run's one of the first books I picked up. I played Ultimate Spider-Man until the disc was broken. I have always been curious. Why did you make Green Goblin a monster rather than a costume? It's just
in Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah. I thought you were talking about the marriage. Oh
God, it's such a good joke.
Well, that came out of we were like literally building Ultimate Spider-Man from day one, and it was like, well, like what part of the Spider-Man origin from the 1960s still holds as truthful in the eyes of a young person today? Like what elements? And it's a surprising amount of stuff, including wrestling is still hot. Like even though like the most, you know, cosmetic things were really stood, like his unique family structure, like everything about it. But then it got to radioactive spider, and I'm like, when was the last time I heard the word radioactive? Like I think it was 1999 when we were coming up. Like, and we were thinking, like, and then you're like, oh yeah, all these Marvel books were built out of nuclear Cold War paranoia. They're all the Hulk, the X-Men, it's all, you know, radioactivity is going to do something to us. And that's where everybody lived at that time. It's just not a paranoia that's in the forefront of our culture, even going back 20 years. And we realized that genetic paranoia seemed to be more like what's going to happen to us seemed to be much more doable, much more, and it didn't change the origin, didn't change the truth of someone fucked up a spider and the spider fucked up Peter is all we need. So genetic, and from there you go, ooh, genetics means, you know, we can start fucking with people's genetics, and one gets to become the hero and one gets to become the monster in, you know, the most traditional mythological sense. So yeah, he gets the Hulk. So he becomes like a hulking monster. And I know, like, to this day it's always been a controversial idea, but it was the first thing that was ever made into an action figure for me. So it's always I always look very
I love that. Like, so before I let you go, I have, I guess, an interesting question. This podcast, our website, started with my brother and and you aren't the only Bendis out there. I have been I didn't even realize you were brothers. Your brother is a professor of game design. I follow him on TikTok. He is I love his content. And then one time I'm on his page, I'm like, is that? And I was like, oh, they're brothers.
Yeah, it's my brother.
He is a board game professor. Like, he does game design, all that stuff.
He's a brilliant man. It's quite something to have that in my house. Like I growing up with him, he was brilliant. It's quite something. Yeah.
What game do you most enjoy playing with your brother?
Well, that I always think about that too, because like like his house is full of games, and his love of them is so true and pure. And I know, like, we played games together growing up, and I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. Like we're in this thing, and I'm looking at the comics and you're looking at the games. It's so fascinating to me. But yeah, we were definitely a Chutes and Ladders mousetrap group. That I remember the best moments and the most sibling fighting happening over a mousetrap. So, yeah, and my brother lettered my first comics when we were growing up. I talk about it a little bit in Fortune Glory, the musical, on the Substack right now. He was there. He was there helping me.
I love that.
Up until, it's so funny. Just before the pandemic started, myself and the director of Torso, Corin Hardy, flew out to Cleveland, where my brother, unrelated to this, I did this book Torso about Elliot Ness and the Torso serial killer of the 1930s years ago, and they're going to make a TV show out of it eventually one day. And the director and I went back to Cleveland to check out the police museum, and my brother, unrelated to my work on Torso, had taken it upon himself to take all of the like glass slides and things in the police and Cleveland City archives that were kind of deteriorating and scan them just as a project, just as like, hey, let's not lose all this stuff before it goes away. So my brother was scanning all the Torso killer files and had them ready for us when we got to Cleveland. It was amazing. So Jared's been
that's wild.
Help in the weirdest ways. Yeah.
That is
completely unrelated to us needing this coming.
Is a wild coincidence.
Yeah, super helpful.
Yeah, but I'm very thankful you were here. Thank you for your time. This was incredible.
Jared will be thrilled for the plug. So that's awesome. Yeah.
I'll tag his TikTok. His content always makes me happy. He just is a bright spirit. So
always been that way.
Thank you for your time. Where can people find?
I will tell you how when we were kids, he once sat up in bed in the middle of the night and started talking in Latin. Scared the shit out of me. That is
a little sick. That's just like Latin is always the one
that's what happens when
demons.
When you're sharing a room with a brilliant person. That's
where can people find you and your work currently?
Jinxworld.com. Jinxworld.com will take you to everything at Dark Horse, which is where all the Jinx World books and powers and new joy operations and the ones we're making. For those of you buying the ones, we're making new ones right now. We're on the second volume right now where you'll meet the other ones. And also, we just announced today the Phenomena, which is a book series I'm doing with Andre Lima, is book 2 just up for pre-order at Abrams. So you hit my social media for any of that. But also on the Jinx World is our Substack, which is my newsletter. Sign up for free or hop on and pass the paywall is free. Brand new comics. We're doing Fortune Glory, the musical, about my time as a writer of the Spider-Man Broadway musical. And that's true. And we're teaching classes and doing all kinds of creation essays and stuff. So the Substack space has been a wonderful, healthy space to share with people. So come on and hang out with us.
I'll tell you, you know how Spotify at the end of the year, every year tells you like your most listened to songs? All of the Green Goblin songs from the Spider-Man musical are on there for me. Probably the only one, but
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I love those songs. I just think they're a great encapsulation of Norman. But
God bless.
Thank you so much for being here.
Great questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.